Are you sure?
I'm not now.
All right, go.
We started. You know what? It started. Welcome to Sound
Are you
Pollution.
sure?
Oh my God. I hate you. Oh, welcome to. I swear to God, welcome to Sound Pollution, everybody. We are so happy that you are here listening again this week.
Yes, we are.
We have Josh of Star, who's going to be joining us today for this wonderful episode. He's really, really talented and somewhat closer to me, I believe. So I'm kind of excited about that. Is your cup broken?
Yeah. Broke off. I like the.
Throw it.
I'm kind of funny. I like broken cups. I don't like perfect cups. So there was
you
this
find
one.
Beauty in the imperfection.
It's coffee and it's fuel to survive. And I feel like if I'm drinking out of a pristine cup, it doesn't make any sense. But this is what I feel like when I'm drinking coffee. My handles broke off. I have a chip in the front.
Yeah, okay. Same.
It fits the mode. So this guy, Josh Hines from Star.
Yes, I'm really excited to talk to him. I really like his music, so I'm excited about this episode. Also, what did I do?
Wait a minute, hold on. Wait a minute. I'm very excited too. Go ahead.
Sometimes I think you do shit like that just to fuck with me. I know, you know what? I know you do shit like that just to fuck with me. Oh, good times. Brent likes to know when I'm frustrated, and then he pokes the bear. And he's trying to make me break and either flip the fuck out or just become like him. That's what's happening.
Over to the dark side. It's nice over here.
So we sent out our first batch of act intervites. Let me edit that out.
Yeah, you might want to edit that out.
Of official. I hate him. Folks,
I didn't say I was quiet.
You started laughing.
Well, I can't help it. If you're funny, stop being funny and that won't happen.
Never. So, we sent our first batch of official musical act invites for the first. He's just doing.
In translation, we sent an email to some of the artists that may perform at the
I was trying to make
tour.
it sound more professional, and you keep laughing at me.
You make me laugh. I can't help it. You're just silly.
Anyway, we're very excited about that.
Swing.
By the time this episode comes out, we will have sent more for our full band venue, but the acoustic venue invites went out, and we are fucking excited. We are a little stressed out, and we're kind of fucking tired, but we're also excited. Very excited.
We are.
Oh, now I get dry, Brent, when I'm like, now we're excited. We are.
We're excited.
For dry eyes, use clear.
We are. Bueller.
I knew it.
There's Bueller.
There he is.
Holy shitballs. It's Josh, everyone. Grab your nuts and run for cover.
Sorry about that.
Sorry about what? You're right on time.
You're on time.
Okay.
He was just showing me his new lyric video for his song, so we were just taking advantage of the time.
Okay.
So how are you?
I'm tired, but I'm good.
You're tired?
How are you?
Tired.
What are you tired of, dude?
I go to work at 4 a.m. I'm tired of that.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
So I was checking out your stuff online, and it says symphonic black metal with philosophical themes. Is that accurate?
Pretty much.
Really? I just listened to it.
It sounds like pompous, but...
What's funny is we listen to a bunch of different bands, and all I hear is cool heavy metal. And so I don't... It's almost like when they start saying black metal, they're strictly talking about how the vocalist sings rather than the music to me. Because all I heard was like cool heavy metal, kind of a progressive heavy metal, but still cool.
Yeah.
You started this band in 2020, and I think I was counting, and you've released like 11 singles.
Yeah, and some of that was just like I don't really know what I was doing when I started it. It was kind of just like, here's a song, I'll put it out. And here's another song, I'll put it out. And then that was kind of just, then I collected those, into like an EP, and then would kind of just, with the labels, when you put out a new album, they want you to put another single out, even though like at this small level, they're still like, we could have something before the full album's out. Mm-hmm. So it kind of looks a little inflated, I think, with that.
No, it looked good. You looked good. First question, even though I've asked about 4 so far, but my first real question that counts is how many members are in this band of 1?
Of Starer?
Yeah.
It's just the one. Just the one.
It's just a one-man band. That's fucking incredible, the sound that you've come up with.
So then my other question is how do you pull off that performance live? What does it look like?
It looks like this, man. There's no live performance.
This is it.
So you're not going to do anything live then?
I don't know. Like, it's kind of one of those funny things where when you kind of write a lot of stuff, like I do, you record it and then you almost like move on. So I don't remember how to play, large chunks of it. I'd have to kind of relearn it. And I've had a few offers from people to form a band for it, but I don't know. I've got a full black metal band that's not this, and I'm kind of just content doing that and just letting this, because I feel like as soon as I let one other person in, then they're going to want to contribute something, which is fair, but I don't want that. It's just kind of a little thing I do.
This is yours.
Yeah.
I've got an idea. When they say, hey, I want to, you say no.
Right.
Then that's it. You play drums, or you look pretty because that's what I hired you for.
Yeah, I hired you because I don't have any hair and I need hair in a metal band.
So how did you get started on this specific project?
So in 2020, Bahargam recorded our second album in like April. And this is when stuff was, pretty weird with COVID. So we weren't really practicing much. It was kind of just a couple of us together to do like, me and the drummer got together to do our parts and whatnot. And I kind of just kept writing things. But the stuff I was writing wasn't sounding like the band. And so then I started putting keyboard on it, just kind of fucking around. And it kind of just got a little more like that, just sort of developed into, well, it's not going to be the band, so who gives a shit what I'm doing to it. And I mentioned it to the drummer once, and he was like, just put it out there, see what happens. And that's kind of really it. It was just, I like post-rock a lot and like, just the real atmospheric stuff. And so I tried to blend that a little bit more, where it's just, I wouldn't say it's like slowed down, but some of that just like grinding intensity of just throwing riffs at you, or, kind of eliminate some of that. Sort of, if I was going to make it separate from the band, then really make it separate, whereas the band had the riffs. It's like, okay, this one will have the atmosphere, I guess. And I mean, really just kind of out of, quarantine, I guess so many people did a lot of stuff spun out of quarantine.
You had a lot of time to kill.
I didn't do anything.
But I mean, when you're normally like practicing a couple times a week or playing gigs or whatever, you're like, well, I want to stay busy with it. And I thought I could just write something else and see what happens to it.
Was the songwriting process for this feel different than it did with the band? I mean, obviously there's not other people's input and I get all that, but were you going in like, all right, I've got this extra stuff and I want to do something completely different, or?
In the beginning, no, it was kind of just putting ideas together and just kind of seeing what worked. But as it developed, doing it on my own, instead of being at like our drummer's studio where we're just recording shit, I could just have it on like, say, my iPad, and here's all my parts. And instead of talking to the guys, like, what if we try this arrangement or whatever, I can just sort of like, mix the parts around, listen to it like, I like that better, and so it's definitely a bit different, a little bit more self-indulgent, I guess. Because you're like, ooh, I don't have to think about, am I going to ask my bassist to play one note for 2 minutes? Like, no, I'm just going to do it on here myself, and nobody's ever going to have an issue with that. Like, it works better for the song, but you start thinking about stuff live, and They're like, God, how is it fun to play a blast beat for 3 minutes? Like, I wouldn't know, but on the recording, it sounds fantastic.
So how many instruments do you play? Because I know you play bass and guitar. Do you play anything else?
I play drums, and I do vocals, obviously. And I can, in a studio setting, play keyboard. You know, like I could never do it live. There'd be too many flubs. But where I can go back and fix things. And I can't do 2-hand keyboard. It's like, here's one hand and let me do another pass. There's the other one. So, but that's pretty much it.
What was the first instrument you ever played?
Bass.
Why the bass?
Well, I was a huge like 90s like alternative rock fan. That's where I grew up. So I got into like the Chili Peppers and Primus and Rage and all those bands that had like the funky basses. And so that's really like what I got into. And then funny enough, I mean, we're talking about metal. My first band was a ska band. But if you listen to ska bass players, there's a lot of, stuff going on. And
yeah.
So it was kind of just, it seemed like that's a fun instrument that, you can kind of do a lot of cool shit, but everybody's not really looking at you. They're looking at the singer or the guitar player, and just kind of went from there. But then, of course, once a band breaks up and you got to write songs to form a new band, you don't really write songs on bass. So then I kind of moved over to guitar. But bass is always, home base.
How long have you been playing?
Started playing bass when I was 14, so 26 years.
Damn, you're old.
Yeah. Feels like it, man. It finally feels like it.
I refuse to take part in this conversation because it doesn't feel like it. We're not going to do that yet. Because we're the same age, and I fucking refuse. So let's talk about one of the songs, First Morning Light.
That was the first song I wrote for it.
So what's the story behind that? Was that the one you just kind of came up with while you were in the band and you were like, I'm going to do something with this? Or was there more to it than that?
No, that's really kind of it. With Bahargam, a lot of it is like the fast tremolo picking type stuff. And then with that song, it starts out real slow, picking the chords out. And that was more of like the post-rock influence, I think. Just a slow build, like. For sure. Going to add in toms. Now we're going to add in kick. Now I'm going to add in snare, just really drag it out. And it kind of like when I put it all together with like when the keys come in and everything, it was like, well, fuck, like once I developed more songs, it was like that still has to be the first one that people hear. Like it just felt like that's the opener right there.
So this was released in 2021, correct?
Yes. Yeah, that album was in January 2021.
So listen to this shit. This thing on Spotify has over 11,000 streams. Did you know that?
I did not know that. So I mean, I upload all this stuff, but I'm not really a Spotify user, so I don't get on and like check stats and all that shit.
I only did that for you. I don't do that for anyone else. So the intro, this song was so crazy to me because, okay, I'm not always patient, and this song just grated against my patience because I would be like, okay. Here's the guitar. Oh, I like that. A minute goes by. Okay. Oh, wait, there's a synth now. All right, I'm now 52. Oh, there's a bass. Oh, cool bass. Oh, the bass line's kind of melodic. And then I didn't realize that the drum started to 1 minute and 17 seconds. 1 fucking minute and 17 seconds. There's not a goddamn drum on the whole song. And I kept speeding ahead, and then when I heard it, I was like, oh, my God. That was the first drum. I need to rewind it. So I went all the way back to the beginning, and I was like, listening for it. So that was cool. And then vocals, 3 minutes.
Wow, yeah.
3 minutes. Yeah. And then after he adds those, he adds more melodic strings, because like in the beginning, it's just kind of a Pink Floyd kind of synth, just long whole notes. It sounded like to me kind of in the beginning. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, kind of just like almost like pad.
Yeah. And so then when you get past the 3 minute mark and the vocals have come on for like 20 seconds, then he adds this melodic synth line, which is really cool. But just when you think you're like, oh, shit's going to get crazy now, it's going to fucking go nuts, So you have 16 seconds of just comes back down. I mean, it literally drops to like 3 or 4 tracks, it sounded like to me. So he built it all the way up, and then he just drops it back down. And then 16 seconds, he brings back in the toms. And the tom part was very cool. So did you do that on purpose too? Because you're driving crazy. The whole song, I was like, okay, come on, I've heard this. And then I'd speed ahead, and then I'd miss it. I'd be like, damn, I gotta rewind it. So this song is almost 8 minutes long, and I probably spent 20 minutes listening to it.
Oh my god!
because I would get excited, and the coolest part of the song was that scream, and then you kind of diminish all the tracks, and you just kind of shrink down. Do you remember any of this, or have you forgot it all?
Oh yeah. I mean, I am kind of sitting here jogging my memory, like, okay, how's that one go again? Yeah, no, that one's like a perfect example of that sort of like building I was talking about with like arranging where it's like it gets real methodical, and the hard part about something like that is like when you want to try a new idea, you still have to kind of put it in context of the whole thing. So I can't be like, okay, that goes there, that sounds good. It's got to be like, nope, let me start from the fucking beginning. Get 6 minutes in. Was that the right decision? How did it feel? Fuck, it didn't feel right. Try this, you know? The whole thing with like building and then shrinking back and then building bigger, that's almost like just like a formula that I probably beat the hell out of too much. Like now that you know that, it's not in every song, but it's probably in there more than I should admit.
No, it was drastic in that song. I mean, it was incredibly drastic. I mean, I could tell that, okay, he's just 3 minutes into it, I'm like, okay, he's just fucking. He's just messing with me.
Fucking with me.
He is. So my question is, at the end, you're winding down when the static sound. There's a static sound, and you almost fade into a static sound when you're done with the guitar. So is that static sound scratching of the pick on the guitar strings at the end of that song?
No, that is just guitar, like just ringing out to where it starts to just feed back. Yeah, that's all that is.
that is not the best song that I've heard from you.
Well, awesome. I appreciate all that. What is the best song you've heard?
Well, I don't know if I can start talking about it yet. See, I can't stop talking about it.
Stay on track. No. So you're kind of from the neck of the woods I am, and I'm not talking about Kentucky. I'm talking about the West Coast and stuff. So, you talked a little bit about like the old school grunge, the Rage Against the Machine. Who would you say really inspired your songwriting?
Just in general or for like this?
In general.
Oh.
Or both.
In general, this is where I lose a lot of metal points when I get into like influences and stuff.
Barry Manilow.
Probably like Radiohead, honestly.
Oh, I love Radiohead. Why would you lose points?
Yeah, why would you lose points for that?
Some of these cult fuckers, just like, oh, it's not Emperor or whatever. But no, it's probably because one of the other old bands I used to play in was a kind of a progressive, with the Odd Times and stuff like that. And I kind of learned a lot of that from some of the experimental Radiohead stuff. Mm-hmm. And then just the way, if you listen to some of their like later stuff, like they get a whole lot out of very little. Some of those songs that are like one or two parts and they just develop the shit out of them. That's kind of like First Morning Light. It's just, good Lord, how long did I milk that part out before you got another part? And it was just subtle changes. So a lot of stuff like that. But I'm a big like Mogwai fan and a big Sigur Rós fan. And that band is where I learned the whole build and then bring it back down and build even bigger the next time. In my mind, I feel like it's just constantly ripping these bands off. But of course, the listener doesn't hear that because you're doing it in, black metal or whatever. The context is different. But,
I think you were so blatant in your ripoff that I think you actually took some of my songs.
Oh, yeah?
I'm just joking. No, I like that song a lot. But I was really surprised at that song because I was expecting it to go one way and then it kept not changing on me.
I mean, I imagine if there ever was a last thing, that's clearly the opener of the live show, even though it's the opener of the album. Like I don't know. That's the way I always heard it. But what I was going to ask you was, it's track 4 on that first album. The song's called Umbra. Mm-hmm. And I almost dropped that one because I thought there's a couple quirky parts. Maybe people won't like it. There's a riff towards the end of the song. And I was like, ooh, I don't know about that. Fuck it. I'll leave it in. And then when the album came out, that was the one part that everybody kept like, oh my God, that riff. And it's not even that special of a riff. I think it's just in the context of that album. You have this sound and then suddenly here's this out of left field. It sounds like an early Muse kind of riff. Like this almost like Southern ragey kind of sound. And I was like I said, I was kind of worried about it. And then people were like, man, that riff was awesome. It's just okay. But you weren't given anything else like it. So anyway, just curious what you thought about that one, if it sticks out.
It did.
Did you listen to that one?
I listened to that one, and my thoughts on that one and a few others is you have some tasty riffs throughout in different spaces. You're kind of tasteful, almost proper in how you choose to,
Thank you.
At least in this. But I think that fit on that song. I mean, some people could say, it sounds vastly different. But I mean, if you line up all your stuff together, is it really vastly different? Yeah, it's a different kind of thing. I think you were probably inserting something in there that they weren't expecting.
And you kind of get a little bit of a teaser, like the bass kind of played a version of it earlier. Mm-hmm. But then, it just kind of slowly builds. You're like, what's it building to? And then it's just this. It's like, where the fuck did that come from? But I mean, it didn't seem to turn anybody off like I thought it would. But I will say I got a lot of one of the most negative comments I got on my first album was some people really didn't like the mix. They were just like, it's really suffocating and cold sounding. And I'm like, well, it's fucking black metal. It's supposed to be cold and kind of uncomfortable.
And and overwhelming and noisy and yes.
Yeah. And so the second album, I thought I cleaned it up a bit, maybe not enough, but anyway, yeah.
But you have a philosophy by what you do too, and so people that actually listen to it are gonna enjoy it because you're screwing with people the way you write.
So every album you've done or you're doing with this project, everyone, it sounds like you want it to be a little bit different. You want to have learned something and grown and then done a little bit different. Do you think that that's going to continue to like change and get bigger and bigger and just almost like 4 albums from now, is it even going to sound like these last 2? And is that something you're doing on purpose?
It's definitely like morphing on purpose, because who not only wants to release the same album twice, who wants to listen to the same album twice?
Exactly.
But I don't think it'll ever go the way of like Ulver, you know, where it's like, oh, this used to be black metal and now what is it? I don't see
now it's like dad
that.
rock.
You're right. Some like electronic shit in there, which is fine, but
yeah, but it's not what you're expecting.
Yeah, no, I was thinking a little bit more like I introduced at the very end of that big like 22-minute song. There's like a little bit of clean vocal that's kind of buried, and I did a song on a compilation a couple months ago where it almost sounds like I mixed like some of like the Cult, like the 80s, like with a little bit of, and I was like, how's this? Yeah, I was like, how's this shit gonna go over? And it's good. It's gonna over fine. And then with the chorus, I mean, I don't sing like him, but I did clean vocals with the dirty vocals. But, you know, even when you go back to like early Emperor, you know, they had some clean vocal parts. So I'll probably work that in. But I mean, you know, I'm just going to take it one at a time, like the next one, you know, shorter songs, more compact. And then we'll see just where it develops from there. I've got a few other kind of in that like 8 to 9 minute songs written that I'm just like set those aside for the next one and see how those will, you know, develop or whatever. So I don't know. I felt like I couldn't put out 2 albums in a row that are like, these are just all 9-minute songs, you know, give people something different where they're like, oh shit, you know, that album only lasted 35 minutes instead of 50 minutes or whatever.
I was either talking to another songwriter or we were interviewing one, and he was like, I want to do an album of like all 1-minute songs.
Oh, that was us. Who was that?
Because they had like 12-minute songs and stuff like that, and they go, our goal is to get down to where we can say everything we want in 1 minute to 2 minutes. And I was like, damn, I want to hear that. Because it's for me, I don't write that way. I just basically say I'm going to write a song and whatever happens, happens, good, bad, or ugly, you know? But they're like intentionally going, okay, like you're going nothing over 6 minutes now, you know, and these guys are going nothing over 1 to 2 minutes. And I'm like, what kind of album is that? It's like, done, gotta roll it.
Let's talk about Fire of the Sun. I listened to the 2 you sent me, and I listened to a couple others. Don't ask me what the names were. I just kind of like scrolled through and listened. And of all the stuff I heard, the guitar on this track is ridiculous. It is so beautiful, but in a hard way. It really, really reminds me of some Tool kind of licks. And I really, really liked it. How'd that song come about?
That song's actually a little older. I'm not going to say it was fully written, but that song was well underway before the first album even came out. And that song's on the second album. Basically, I mean, there's a few elements to it. So one of my dogs, he's not going to make it to July. I mean, I'll just be honest with you.
I'm sorry.
But if he did, he would be 17. He's had cancer. He lives with my mom. He's like the family dog. So during COVID, when all his projects started and everything, that's about the time we noticed him declining. And so, you know, I would only see him every so often because of, you know, the social distancing and all that, you know, wanting to not be around my mom too much. And each time I saw him, it seemed like he was a little worse. And so you just kind of put that like sadness with just the whole quarantine and just everything, you know, from the big picture. And so that song was very much like inspired by like my relationship with him. And so that kind of like when you were talking about the pretty, like sort of the beautiful sound mixed with the heavy stuff, like that's where that came from. But also it was kind of a conscious decision to think about like, you know, bass is not usually like a leading instrument in this type of stuff. But for that song, it started with that bass line.
And it's great. It's a great bass line.
And thank you. And the bass line's actually in 5. So it only loops around, every however many measures you want to like play it, fucking 20 times or whatever. I don't know what the mathematical term is, but either way, like I do a lot of odd time stuff, but the bass is actually a riff, and I'm pretty sure it was in 5. And so you kind of hear it, the pattern, it sounds consistent, but like where's the one? It's not the same, but every so many passes. And so then it's like once I get the bass line laid down and just kind of a drum track, then it was just, okay, I got this guitar part, I'm just going to repeat it indefinitely. That one that starts the whole thing out is just going to repeat. Sometimes I'll take it down, and then when you kind of hear it come back in, and then it was just, all right, what's another guitar part? What's another? And kind of just built it really organically, and then to where everything eventually, now all the guitars are playing that bass riff, and just kind of like that, and then I almost thought it's definitely not like a happy song, but it is, like you said, it's kind of pretty. It's got like a different mood to it. And I almost thought, like, is this going to be a turnoff? Is it almost too emotional sounding? But for me, it was like, this is it's almost like the centerpiece.
So this is the favorite song that I had to listen to out of the songs we got. I like this one a lot. It's a 9-minute song. That bass line is just a great groove, dude.
Man.
Out of all the songs I listened to, that one made me stop to actually go back and listen to the bass line. Because the bass line was that good, it caught my attention. I stopped. But not in an annoying way like the first song.
But that's the thing with that bass line. It's very simple. It's just that do, and then just repeat. Yeah, but because it's like that 5 pattern, it creates like the illusion that there's a lot more going on. And then when you change from one note, like it's playing on like, the A string, and then you play the same pattern on the D string, because you have to keep that same 5-note pattern, it then gets even weirder because now it's starting on that. Well, it sounds way more complicated than it actually is. The complicated part is not changing that pattern and just playing it repeatedly.
Yeah, I thought it was just cool. I was like, oh, this is cool. Let me listen to this for a while. And then I liked the nice breakdown, and you had a melodic synth part starting at 3 minutes and 45 seconds. I thought that was really cool. So that was kind of a little lighter part. You were really melodic in that part. I think it almost sounded like, I don't know, fluttery, is what's coming now because I'm an idiot. And then after that, you had another cool rhythm part. And then there's this change right after the guitar stuff. You really hit it on guitar hard again. And then you had like a Russian change to it, like you'd been influenced, like almost a time signature change.
When it kind of breaks down and it kicks back in with a kick drum that's just kind of pounding,
yeah.
and then the riff that you're hearing on guitar, the da da da, that is the same riff that the like higher pitched guitar is doing throughout the entire song.
Is it really?
That like the that riff, it's that, but just like on the lower strings. I may have adapted it, like moved a note or something, but it's basically that riff, and then it just modulates up a string. So you've kind of been hearing that riff in the background the entire time, and that's kind of what I was really like, man, it's cool that it, like, when it hit, like it still meant something despite how much I beat it into the ground.
So my question on that one was, is it difficult to write changes on your songs? It's like, do you find it difficult? Do you struggle going from heavy to light and then slow to fast? You do jump back around a lot. And so I'm wondering if at any point do you just go, well, fuck, I don't want to go slow. I want to go fast. Or,
the funny thing about that is, as much as, I'm telling you, like, I have a specific goal, the next album is going to be shorter songs or whatever. As far as the songs themselves, I feel like all of it is just really natural. Like, as far as what comes next, it's kind of just, I'll get to a point and it's like, what does come next? And then it's just sort of, I'm not gonna say it just happens because it's all those layers, but I don't think there was like a thought process of, I want this to now break down and now I want it to do this. But like I said earlier, that song follows that same exact formula I mentioned, where like it's a long, slow build, and then it finally, kind of hits, and then it breaks down, and then it hits again, but in a different way. So some of it, honestly, I mean, I just have a pattern.
Because I know you start out with, I want to do this, but it seems like at some point you just have to throw your hands up in the air and let it be, right?
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the best way to handle just about any kind of songwriting. Like you said with your stuff, you just sit down and write a song and you just let it develop and see where it goes. And and there are times where it's like, okay, I want this to come back. How do I bring that in? I have to find a way to bring it in. I don't remember this particular song having like an issue with that. This one felt like it just kind of really, I think it came from such a pure spot within me of just what I was wanting to get out, emotionally and things like that. But no, there's certainly times when it's like a little trial and error. When I have like my songs like in my project folder, I may have like a BPM note where it's like, okay, this one's 130 BPM, that one's 135. I could slow those 135 riffs down if they feel like they would match this song. And so there are times when there's just some mixing and matching. But with me, having played so many different genres, like I played ska stuff. I was in a Chili Peppers tribute band. You pick up. Yeah, it was
nice.
You pick up all these little things from all these other places. And so then when you finally like, I'm going to write a song, I don't think you're really consciously aware of it, like that you've got all these tools. I'm aware of it as I'm gathering them.
So I know you don't have any upcoming gigs because it's just you.
For this, yeah, for sure.
For this. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have any other upcoming gigs with any of the bands that you're currently working with?
Yes.
Okay.
So I've been playing drums in a band for about 5 years called Dos Cobros, and it's me and one other guy, and he does vocals and guitar. It kind of started as a punk band. It's a little bit more now, just like a garage rock mixed with punk. We're mixing a little of that stoner sound in. We put out an album that was like, it was almost like a cyberpunk album. It's nothing we can play live. It's got a lot of whatever. Anyway, that band is pretty active because it's a 2-piece, and I've been doing it for a while. So we're actually playing Saturday. I don't know when this will air, but
It won't come out not this Tuesday, but the Tuesday after.
Okay. So that band, it'll be in the past by the time this airs. But yeah, we've got that one. We've got one in June. I feel like we've got some more. And then with Bahargam, like I said, we're just kind of waiting. When everybody feels comfortable, we'll get something. I'm playing a 90s cover band, actually. And that band just recently reformed. We used to play a lot, and I think we kind of just burned out. It's fun. I mean, it sucks when you're like, the cover band brings the crowd and makes the money. I mean, we all know that. It's a lot of fun. Once you can kind of get past resenting your own band because people love your cover band, but they don't love your original band, it is a lot of fun. But that band, we actually just worked in a new drummer as well. So we're kind of just getting it going again. Yeah, I mean, I guess it doesn't really, I won't get into all the dates of it, but it's pretty active for sure.
So I have one last question. Did you write the Christmas classic Carol of the Hells? And so this was released on YouTube in HD with his virtually stunning red jumpsuit. It had tasteful harmonic guitar pinches throughout the whole thing. Did you write that?
No.
You ripped it off?
Oh, yeah, that's Carol of the Bells.
Oh, I thought, well, it had some changes to it, though. It wasn't exactly 100%, though.
Oh, no, yeah, definitely. And God, you watch the video, it's funny. You'll notice a couple of times in the video, I'll kind of make this, metal face, this, face, and that's where I hit, a minor note that's not in the original to kind of, nasty it up a little bit. That goes back to during COVID, when, the bars and the venues were closed. Our local venue, they were doing all these, live streams where everybody would submit music and stuff. And so I did a bunch of other stuff throughout the year. And then when it came time for Christmas, even though they were back open, they do a big annual Toys for Tots fundraiser. Mm-hmm. So they were everybody cover a Christmas song, and we're going to do another live stream like we did during the shutdown. And I was like, well, I don't like Christmas music, but everybody knows Carol of the Bells is awesome. So I just did that. Yeah.
It was so funny because I was like, oh my God, he's wearing a red jumpsuit. This has got to be during Christmas. And so then I was listening to it, and I was like, it sounds familiar, but there's a part in there it's either diminished or it's flat, one or the other. But anyway, that's really cool. So you can get a good idea by watching that, because it has him playing drums, bass, keyboards, guitar, all on one screen in a red jumpsuit.
In different locations around, now I'm sitting on this side of the tree, now I'm on that side of the tree. Yeah,
it's funny. It's awesome. I love it.
So what advice would you give an up-and-coming songwriter?
I think the most generic thing a person could always say is, be true to yourself and all that stuff. And that is always going to be true, though. But I think from my personal experience, I mean, I've not had really any success. I still get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and go to work. So it's not like I know how to live off of music, but I've made a shitload of music for a long time. So in my experiences, I would say, learn the technical things. I can't read music, but, I know what scales are. I know how they work. I know how chords work. So learn those things. And learn them well, but don't let them control everything that you do. Sometimes breaking out of that box is a thing. And the same thing with some of the odd time signatures, or if you have the ability or the means, to pick up a second instrument. Even if it's just bass versus guitar, which are very similar, but a bass line can change everything. So I would say it's, in the big picture, just the more things you can learn and like gather together, different genres and influences, the better you're going to be. Even if you specifically are like, I want to write country music and that's all I want to write. Knowing how to write a metal song will at some point work in your favor if you just want to switch up the structure of your song. You're not going to sit there and think, oh, you can't have a song that just isn't verse, chorus, whatever. You've heard something, you've written something that's not that. So you can write. The biggest hurdle, I think, for a lot of people is overthinking everything. I work with a guy who's insanely talented with music, but he just overthinks it all. And he's like, I don't know if that riff's good enough. I'm not going to put this out until whatever. And I'm just like, no, motherfucker, just put it out, because then it's behind you. It's over with, and you can't keep overthinking it. You've moved on. You've made yourself move on to the next one. And whatever you don't like about the first one because you felt like you rushed it, address that in the next one. And every song's not going to be the best song. You're not going to write an album of all #1 hits. Like, just write songs that you like. I mean, for me, that's what I do, is just, would I want to listen to that? I would,
Yeah.
And that's kind of just, I guess, the staying true to yourself. And, and if you want to challenge yourself, I want to write a 9-minute song. I want to write a 3-minute song, whatever, I guess just kind of be open, be open to criticism and to adapt, and just, don't put yourself in a little box, I think is the most important thing for me anyway.
And my final question for you is, I would like you to tell my listeners about the animal rescue that you started doing. I know.
Okay.
I know it's not music related. I know it's not, but go ahead.
I mean, it's a very important part of my life. I'm really happy you asked about it. I'm always down to talk about that. At the beginning, I'll try to make this short because it could go on forever. In the beginning, so I mean, you and I have talked before. So I travel. I went to Egypt in 2010 and found this dog on the street. She was being like beaten, stuff like that. So I got involved, and once I came back home, I couldn't take her with me. I found a shelter over there in Cairo, and they captured her. We made sure it was the same dog because there's street dogs everywhere over there. And it's any country like that. Like you go to India or some South American countries, or a lot of Middle Eastern, places that aren't like the major European cities or the major U.S. cities. It's so common to see the dogs everywhere and the cats everywhere. So that was a concern with, make sure this is the same dog, but also just kind of like, man, there's a fucking problem over there. Yeah. So they helped me get the dog to the U.S., and I've had her for 12 years now. She's where the Starer name comes from. Her name is Finkus, but like I take her outside and she just basically, instead of being a dog running around or whatever, she just stands there and just stares. And so it's kind of like, just like she's the dog version of me, she's just out there contemplating and just,
like, what does it all mean?
Yeah. So, she's where that name comes from. But through that experience, I got involved with the shelter over there. And over the years, I've gotten more and more involved. And I started going back over there because I had a really bad experience the first time. So it took me, some years to go back. But I go over there by myself most of the time. And it's a different experience, as a white guy from Kentucky. You get off the plane and like one of the founders of the biggest animal rescue in Egypt is just like, welcome home. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, I had my life get like this. But, it's weird. But I go over there, and for a while I would fly back dogs to the U.S. and they would go to rescues. And then in 2019, there was like a ban put in, and the ban's never been lifted. So dogs specifically from Egypt, on a case-by-case basis, if you can convince them that is your dog, as in it's one dog, then maybe you could bring it over. But, I'm not going to be able to. I was flying back like 7 dogs at a time.
Oh, wow.
Those days are over, at least for now. And there's just so many other things going on in the world. Who knows when that ban's going to be even thought about. So anyway, I'll go over there and I'll help out with the shelter. Like we repainted it one year. We moved it to another location. I wasn't really that involved in the moving, but there are strictly no kill. So there's like 1,500 animals there.
Good.
And
I mean, not good that there's that many animals, but I'm glad that they're not. I just want it. Yeah. I'm glad that they're not no kill.
But from over here, I can only go over there about once a year. So I help with their website. We were doing a lot of fundraising, and then COVID kind of killed a lot of that just because everybody's, holding on to their money a little tighter.
Mm-hmm.
But some of my bands, we've done shows specifically, like every bit from this will go to the shelter. I don't know if you've seen it where with Starer, there's been all the Bandcamp Fridays. I'm like,
yes, I've been sharing those when I saw them coming up.
Appreciate it. I'm just like, you know what? All digital sales, all going over there. And luckily, we've got a good group in like Europe as well. Some people in the UK, Netherlands, stuff like that, where they do like raffles and things. Like I made all these homemade leashes, and we're going to do bids on them. So we've got other networks for fundraising. It's not just over here, but that's kind of it. It's a global effort, and they really, like, over time welcomed me in like as one of their own, and like it's kind of been like the honor of my life, being a big animal guy and then being able to be that involved in something on that scale on a strictly volunteer basis. I don't make anything from it. I don't know. It's an amazing thing.
Does it have a name?
They call it ESMA, but it's short for Egyptian Society for Mercy to Animals. So if anybody listening, it's like esmaegypt.org, or if you just look up Esma Egypt on like Instagram or Facebook or whatever. I actually wrote a book about it that came out last year.
Oh, really? What's the name of the book?
The book is, I don't have a copy sitting here.
You don't know the name of your own book?
Oh, no, I was going to show you a copy because it's called Baladi, but it's spelled Baladi. And that's like the Arabic word for like local. So like that's kind of what they refer to like mutts, local dogs, Baladi dogs. But I mean, they also would use it to say it's Baladi food or whatever. But so the dogs are called Baladis. That's their quote breed, even though it's, they're just mutts. But so it's called Baladi, The Journey of an Egyptian Street Dog. And then it's on Amazon, it's on Barnes & Noble, whatever. But if anybody's interested and wants to learn more about it, it was just, I wrote the book as a means to help the shelter out. Like, this is my story. I don't have infinite amount of money, but I can write my story, and whatever money the book makes all goes to the shelter.
That's it's not like really cool. Now I'm going to have to go buy the book.
Well,
but you did.
Yeah.
I'm going to go buy your book. I want to thank you so much for being on the show.
Josh, I enjoyed meeting you, and I'm thankful that you got on with us, and maybe we can talk again in the future with your other bands.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Sound Pollution this week with Starer. Yes, I did realize while listening to the intro, we said it wrong multiple times. So Josh, I would like to apologize for that. Please don't forget, we have a tour coming up in the Austin, Texas area in October. So make sure you're following and subscribing to us on social media so that you can learn all about it. Please become a patron if you are able. Shout out to my patrons, Kathleen and Ivan. We would like to have some more. We will give you a shout out on the show. That's about it for this week, guys. Thank you so much again for listening. And remember to make some noise.